Hello. Welcome.
Welcome
You
all.
are listening to or watching the Trippy podcast.
That's right.
I am Adelaide Braddock, the CEO of Trippy. This is
Jim Manning. I'm the Chief Content Officer.
Indeed,
Hey.
he is. And today we have an awesome guest. I'm very excited to welcome Morgan Vierling. Let's add Morgan here. Hello. How are you doing today?
I am excellent. Thank you for asking. How are y'all?
We are doing very well. Okay. By way of introduction, so for those familiar with the podcast, How Did This Get Made? It may or may not surprise you to learn that Jason Mantzoukas and June, Diane, Raphael, and Paul Scheer are not exactly Dungeons and Dragons experts. So much so that a recent live taping of their podcast in Philadelphia, a resident expert on D&D was requested to help them see if they could better understand exactly why the year 2000 version of the movie Dungeons and Dragons was so very, very confusing.
So not good.
So not good. So
Low
enter
quality.
Morgan Vierling. Morgan's 8+ years experience as a dungeon master, combined with his quick wit and humor, immediately endeared him to both the panel and the audience, and it made him the unintentional star of the show. Chants of his name went up every time the panel found themselves baffled by the creative choices made by the movie's director, which was often.
Plentiful, strange choices.
But as the engagement manager and Proud Cat Dad recently confided to us, he doesn't actually play D&D that much anymore. Instead, he is an avid fan of Pathfinder, which he, like millions of other people around the world, plays with a group of players through the online platform Roll20. And though the overlap between online gaming and travel planning may seem like a stretch, in talking to Morgan, we saw this as a way that people can meet and connect with other people from around the world without possible expenditures or health risks that come with international travel. So we wanted to ask Morgan to tell us more to see if we were right. So welcome, Morgan. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for
Excellent.
asking, and thank you for inviting me to be here. It's
Oh my
very
gosh.
exciting.
It's a serious pleasure. So we wound up getting you on here because we ran into you after the show. We were at the taping as well. And as I mentioned, you did us proud, man. Like,
Well, I am glad that I was able to represent our beleaguered community.
It really is too. No, it was phenomenal. And as people are going to witness when the episode comes out, you really nailed it. It was pretty fantastic. You even got your face and name on the t-shirt.
I did. Yes, I'm wearing the t-shirt, which is probably not. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I may have ordered enough of these to wear for the entire week because I'm very excited about it.
Are you writing in the tags Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Just so you know.
Yes.
Good idea.
I love it. Well, okay. So for anyone unfamiliar, can you just quickly describe what is online tabletop RPG?
Yeah. Would it be okay if I started with what is a tabletop RPG?
I think that's probably appropriate.
Backing up a little bit. Yeah, sure.
Cool. A tabletop RPG or TTRPG stands for a tabletop role-playing game, which is essentially one part board game and one part improv show. You're basically telling a collective story with a group of people where each of you embodies a different character, except one person who you can kind of think of as the author, who's like every other character. And you meet often multiple times to tell the same story week to week. And sometimes you don't just get to decide whether you succeed or fail at a given thing, you roll dice to determine that. And the most famous TTRPG out there is, of course, Dungeons and Dragons, which this movie was made about, ostensibly. At least. Yeah.
Name.
Yeah. And not much else.
I don't know if it's actually the first TTRPG, but it is certainly the one that put the hobby on the map, so to speak, and it's kind of become borderline socially acceptable at this point, thanks to a lot of very successful streamers.
Well, and there was a recent movie, obviously, that came out with one of the Chris's. I want to say Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That sounds right. Yeah. That was a pretty good movie in my estimations, as opposed to the 2001.
Yes.
But essentially, that's what a tabletop RPG is. You can think of it, if you've read Lord of the Rings, as you're going to have each person around the table will be a different member of the Fellowship. One person's Gimli, one person's Legolas, one person's Gandalf, one person's Aragorn, and then the Dungeon Master is like every other character in the book that's not represented by an individual player, and they sort of like set the scenario that they have to deal with. So they're Sauron, they're every orc along the way, they're the weather. If you're talking about like the actual Tolkien book, they're what they had for breakfast on the third day because they love getting really
They're
granular with
11sies.
those details.
Yeah, of course.
So this is a hobby that like started off essentially in people's basements, played by nerds like myself. And it has sort of coming out of the basement, both like in terms of the public consciousness, but also where you literally can play it. While it is like traditionally a thing that you do in person with a group of people who hopefully you like and don't smell too bad, some stereotypes about us are occasionally accurate.
Are not no. I can attest to being the one who smells the worst at the table.
Hey, there we go. I'm glad this is a remote call then.
I'll own it. But I do bring good snacks. That's why I keep getting invited back.
True.
Nice.
Yeah.
So there has been a rise of virtual tabletop gamings where essentially like you can have a game board and like automated dice rolling, and like video chat is often woven into this as well. And this was like already a thing prior to 2020, although not necessarily a great thing in terms of like the support and the technology that was out there.
Gotcha.
But over the course of the pandemic, people realized like, hey, this is a hobby that can keep going strong in a a virtual world.
Yeah.
And so that technology grew by like leaps and bounds, and the community of people who was playing it grew by leaps and bounds as well.
Yeah. Which is
And-
necessary, right? Because you need a variety of people. I feel.
Indeed, yes. And the thing that was particularly exciting, and I guess like most relevant to y'all's topic, is that like it also reduced barriers in terms of who we can play with and where they have to be, in really exciting ways. It's not just like, oh, I'm playing with my local Philadelphia friends anymore. I actually started playing with a bunch of rando European friends.
Very cool.
Which we will talk about as well, because that's really, to your point, that's the crux of where that overlap feels it should exist. Because getting out in the world and meeting people is a real mission of ours as well. So that was the thing that drew us to the conversation with you when we talked about it was, what is this experience like? And some of these, the big overarching game that you're playing is called a campaign each time you do it. And there are some campaigns, there was one I was just reading about that has been going on for 40 years.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So like people keep these games going and they build bonds, they build real connections with one another. So I'm curious. Okay. So how did you learn about online tabletop gaming and what platform? Can you talk a little bit about the platform that you use?
Yeah, so I use a couple of different platforms right now. I think that I first learned about Roll20 when I moved away. I used to live in Maryland and moved up here to be with my wife and pursue some work opportunities. And that meant leaving my game behind, which was a bummer.
Yeah.
But there happened to be these platforms out there where you could still play with those people, and also like I wound up starting some games with old friends in Maryland who I wasn't playing with before because it can be easier to get together virtually on a Thursday night. So I was kind of introduced to it secondhand by folks that were already using this website, and the like most popular website for this is called Roll20, roll20.net. And it is a free to use platform. I guess you could call it like a freemium platform if that video game term applies.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, because like the basic bare bones, you just need to sign up and make an account. And I will say that you get what you pay for.
Okay.
Usually that's the case.
Yeah, it is not my favorite platform to use because it is sort of it gets a lot of demand, so like its servers
Mm,
tend to be really clogged up.
okay.
And they nickel and dime you for like any given piece of content you want to
Ooh,
purchase.
I gotcha. Okay.
So like, all you really need to play the game is like, really you don't even need a game board for a lot of these. You can do what we call theater of the mind. And you could all roll your dice independently as well, but a lot of folks like to have the dice, be rolled virtually so everyone can
Mm.
see it. It makes sure no one cheats, but I think more than anything it's about like everyone being able to see the result and get excited about it.
I was gonna say, or yeah, in any direction, because you can have if you roll a 1, it's a critical
Critical fail.
fail, and a critical hit, is always a good time. So if you roll a 20, but yeah, that's awesome. Like, do you have some like serious dice sets? I know these things can get expensive. You had mentioned like, oh, he just scoffed. He just you have
Who
no
are you asking here? Of course he does.
I have a fishing tackle box that's
Oh
just full
man.
of dice, and it's like, all right, I got my medals, my blue medal set here, my green medal set here. I got my stray D20s in this one, and my stray D6s. It's a whole thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I
not
backed a campaign years ago, a Kickstarter called Pixel, yeah, something, I don't know, but it's the light up dice.
ooh.
Yeah, and that one's supposed to be delivering Q4 this year. I just got a D20. I just got a D20. That was the only one I purchased, but I am unbelievably excited.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Do they light up every time you roll them, or like every time you get a natural 20? Or
Every time you light up, and each number has a different
ooh,
pattern that it lights up, and like, yeah,
that's so
it's
fun.
baller. It's very
Yeah.
exciting. I'll put the link to it in our description, so when it becomes like a thing, everyone can be like, "Oh, Adelaide told me."
I want to start a campaign just so we can use that die.
Just
You really
Like,
should.
I'm all over it.
yeah. No, it's a great time. That's amazing.
will-
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I will say that like that is one bummer about most of my games going virtual, is that like I have all of these nice dice. I have
Mm,
game maps and figurines and
mhm.
books and all this stuff, and like a GM screen and like cards that indicate people's conditions and blah 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 blah, and initiative trackers with magnets and
Holy.
Got the full Magilla.
yeah, and it's mostly collecting dust on the shelves.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. That is
It's
kind of a
bummer.
pain.
Yeah.
I feel like you'll get there. I feel like something's gonna come around and you're gonna have like this ultimate campaign where you're gonna be like, it's my time to shine. Like, especially after How Did This Get Made comes out, people are gonna be like, I want a campaign with Morgan. That's gonna be great. So okay, so you had mentioned that you had to apply for a position at this table that you're at on Roll20, which is not a thing most people who play games feel like they should have to do. What was that like?
Well, can I give like an explanation for why I had to apply?
Absolutely, please.
Okay. So you mentioned at the top of the call that what I really like to play is Pathfinder.
Yes.
Which is like Dungeons and Dragons, but with like an extra layer of rules and tactics put
I know
over
nothing
it.
about Pathfinder. This is you'll be informing me along with, I'm sure, a lot of people about this.
Historically, it's very similar to Dungeons and Dragons. Like it actually kind of grew out of D&D. D&D like has had various editions over the years, and between its third and its fourth edition, there was kind of like a offloading of people who didn't like the fourth edition of D&D, who really liked the third edition, and those folks came and started playing Pathfinder as a way to keep that magic going. So like there's this idea in game design that complexity is the currency that you buy depth with.
Okay.
Like for a game to be like deep, it needs to have a certain level of complexity, right?
Sure.
Like chess versus checkers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In that comparison, like D&D would be checkers and Pathfinder would be chess. There are more rules. There's more like regulation of what you can do. You have to choose more stuff as your character levels up. But you get like a more dynamic system where your choices matter more, and where like the turns have more variety. And I also happen to like it because it does like fantasy superhero shenanigans really well.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so
so
you're like levitating over people and like. Okay.
Yeah, I've like, had sequences where the monk in the group like ran up the side of a building, leapt off of it, uh kicked a dragon rider off of his dragon, then jumped to another dragon and proceeded to like headbutt that guy because he only had the one arm. He got lost his arm earlier in the campaign. Um like headbutted that guy to take him out, and then another guy came over and he like grabbed that guy, and they were all flying dragons, and he threw him off of the dragon, and then he like surfed the dragon into the ground. This is like all supported by the rules, and that's dope.
That's a movie I want to see
That
right
is
there.
exactly
You just
it.
that's your elevator pitch for that. Let's do this. Let's
Right?
make this campaign a film.
It's
I'll
great.
finance it. No.
It's great. And so like I have a lot of friends who are into the broader hobby of tabletop role playing games.
Okay.
And a lot of them will kind of play whatever.
Mhm.
They're not like necessarily invested in the specific game. And so I realized I was like running all these games of Pathfinder where I was sort of the only one that really knew the rules. And like I knew people's characters better than they did. And I just had to like kind of come to terms with the fact that like this is my favorite game, but it is not the best game for everyone else on the planet.
Ah. Yeah.
Um, and I also had like some what we call like forever GM burnout.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was almost always the one running the games. I
Yeah.
was definitely always the one running the games if we wanted to play Pathfinder, which is what I wanted to play, right?
Mhm.
And I'm
Um,
kind of a chaotic neutral person in general. So
yeah.
like when I'm playing a game, I tend to just poke the bear every chance I get. Like my DMs often hate me,
I would classify you as chaotic naughty.
but it's
Oh,
that just got weird. No, I just it's one of those things where I might not necessarily be the instigator of the
mhm.
chaos, but I will 100% encourage whatever chaos is brought to the table. Like I will fall right in line with the most chaotic character at the table.
Well, that's like what makes the game so fun, though, right? Is like building off each other's
Oh my
chaos. Like
god.
I, you know,
Yeah.
I mentioned that it's one part an improv show because so many of
Right.
those same rules applies. You're
Mm.
yes-anding everything everyone does, and like you're trying
Mhm.
to use the space around you. And
Yes. Every time I got a weapon, the first thing I would do with it is attempt to hit people with it in a way it was not intended to be used.
hell yeah, I
Yeah.
love it.
I broke my own nose a few times in that campaign.
Did you have an obsidian chainmail turtleneck though?
I did not. I had a
Ugh.
slightly darker black
Missed
one, however.
opportunity.
I was gender bend
Ooh.
archer. My name was Randy.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I had a mustache and I had great charisma, not charisma, but faking people out.
Chorizo.
What is it?
Chorizo. No,
I
that's
had
not it. It's
I had
deception.
phenomenal
I
chorizo.
think.
I had excellent. I had the best chorizo of anyone in the game.
Well, now I just want a burrito for dinner.
My deception was spectacular. And I had one other character who just kept rolling to try and like rip my mustache off, and she kept rolling like 4s and
Oh my
2s,
God.
and it was just like
Oh,
it was fantastic. Anyway, all right. So, but back to speaking of bonding, like I feel like we're not even playing a game together. We're just
I
like
know, right?
commiserating. This is great. But so okay, so you were talking about having to apply for the game. We're still on this. Like,
Yes. So I came to this realization that like I wanted to be a player. I wanted to be a player in a Pathfinder game, and I, wanted to play with people that shared a passion for the game itself, as opposed to just
yeah,
my
why not?
company.
Yeah.
Um, I love people who love the pleasure of my company too. I'm not trying to, badmouth anyone there.
It's a perk.
Cool.
It's
Yeah. Um,
it's a feature, not a bug.
right, right. So I looked online, and one of the places I looked were the forums of the Roll20 website.
Okay.
And there are people there who will post when they are looking for players or occasionally GMs to fill a seat at their game.
Okay.
Um, Now, as you two are definitely aware, but your listeners might not be, like D&D can be a pretty, and Pathfinder and all of these games can be like a pretty demanding hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's like high time investment usually. You are trying to like integrate characters into a broader story.
Yeah.
So you don't want to like do all this work to like bring in a new character and like introduce someone to the game and yada yada, and then they like bail on you.
Right.
So with that in mind, they have like some standards they want to implement to make sure that people have like the right some level of investment going
How
in.
little of a life do you have outside of this game?
Right.
Is this the right question, really? Is that what we're going for here?
No? Oh.
I think I will plead the fifth. I mean, look, I do have a social life and lots of friends and blah, 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 but I will say that most of my standing social obligations, the things that I am doing every week are usually some sort of tabletop role-playing game.
No
but
judgment.
I have no room. I'm here on a Thursday night doing a podcast, so talk to me about social.
I mean, who doesn't love a podcast, though?
I'm not one of those. I love podcasts.
It's my first time doing a podcast, if you don't count the live show.
Too. Oh, wait.
I mean,
if you don't count it, but you should count it because you seemed like you had done many podcasts prior to that. You were like so spot on.
Yeah, great speaking skills.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
That was phenomenal.
Well, there's a certain amount of, again, going back to like the improv thing, there's a certain amount of stage presence that goes into running a game. There's a certain amount of like people management that goes into DMing. And my job is also happens to be like very public speaking and communications oriented.
There you go. Yeah, it was a convergence of a lot of really appropriate skills in that moment, and it worked out, I'd say.
Oh yeah, spectacular. Yeah, I'm really interested to hear the episode.
Oh yeah, that'll be a fun time. Okay, who is this?
This is Tom Hanks, America's Sweetheart.
That's America's Sweetheart. You told us about him before, and I'm sorry I totally messed up your punchline. He is oh my God.
Yeah, he is the sweetest boy. He would rather I be lying down on the couch so he'd get all snuggly up in my armpit, but he's gonna have to wait for now.
All right, Brilliant. You can have him back in a minute, honey. I promise. And you have 2 cats, yeah?
I do. The other one is Sketty. He is napping over here in the corner.
And he is Sketty because?
Oh, because it's short for spaghetti, and he's a little noodle. He less so these days, but when he was we found him when he was a 10-day-old kid, and he would just be like a little limp thing in your arm,
Aww.
Yeah. I will tell you that when I was doing in-person games, many a game board, many a party was just demolished by a giant panther arriving on the scene and
that's brilliant, amazing,
sending people flying across the map.
Love it.
I mean, if you're gonna fight, you gotta fight. You gotta bring it.
Yeah,
you gotta anticipate anything. It really is. That is a beautiful cat.
He is a beautiful boy.
Oh my gosh. And you black. My first cat was a black cat. I love black cats.
Oh, I love black cats too. I've had a few.
Oh, great. Adorbs.
Anyway, sorry.
You're good. We're all just mesmerized by the kitty cat. It's fine.
We are. He's really cute.
It's like when Jason found out there was a baby in the audience. It was
yes, that was so endearing.
That was hilarious.
That's me. That is why I'm the Jason in my group, is because I'm like, it is a baby. I don't have a baby. I don't want a baby, but I want your baby, and I will get your baby. All right. So so you had to apply. I'm gonna get back to this. I got this. We do this. Yeah. So you had to apply, and it makes sense. Like I appreciate having played D&D. I can appreciate the whole can you actually commit to this kind of situation? Because I got into a campaign one time, and I think we went 2 sessions, and we were all like, well, I think we're good. That and the DM insisted that I do a Kiwi accent, and I was like, I don't think I can keep this up. I'm way too serious for this.
Is an odd demand.
Yeah, it was.
It was an odd group of people playing this game.
Yeah.
Very kind of misfits of.
I have a great time doing accents. Don't get me wrong. I insult everybody when I do them. It's fine. But I just, if it's a justification for me, I'm not actually offended. So, ask away. I'll do an accent, and I'll, make sure everyone hates it.
Yeah, I try to keep my accents to various flavors of white because I feel like I'm less fraught in that territory.
Fair.
But I will also say that if I try to do an accent that is east of the UK but west of Russia, I just kind of meander all over the continent for a while before settling into Borat eventually. It's bad.
Same.
Jim does a spot on Russian accent, I think. It's pretty
He's not true.
He's joke.
He's joke.
He's very good, comrade.
So, okay. So speaking of different countries, so your team members are from different countries,
Yes.
and they're all from different backgrounds. So there seems to be, however, quite a bit of bonding happening outside of the game. So can you tell us a little bit about like who these people are and how you're learning about each other? And yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so the guy who originally posted the game, his name is, well, it's funny because in some cases I know their actual name and in some cases I don't. But I know this gentleman is Rev. He is a civic engineer in Portugal. And he started the original campaign that we began playing like every like 2 or 3 weeks we were playing this game. And then one day, I think like Rev had to suddenly bail at the last minute, and I was like, well, I've got this other campaign that I could run for us if we want to. And like we started doing that, and then we started playing another campaign, and now we have like 3 campaigns that we're switching between on a regular basis.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Rev is also one of the only ones whose face I haven't seen yet. He apparently doesn't have a camera, also doesn't own any actual dice, which is mind-blowing to me.
That is insane.
Yes.
I don't know if I trust Rev to be an actual human. I feel like this is AI. So.
It's entirely possible. Like I'm not fully convinced he
That'd be some damn fine chat GPT there.
Right.
Yeah. So there's Rev, and so I should say I collectively refer to this group as the Germans, even though they're not all German.
Okay.
I should also say that like I did not peg where people were from properly when I first started playing with them. It was initially a German lawyer named Krax, who I think I thought he was actually German. A German university student named Kevin, who I thought was Russian, and he turned out to just be like ethnically Russian. And a guy named Mindy, who I thought was German, but was actually Estonian.
Okay.
And like that doesn't say great things about my ability to place accents, admittedly, but like also they all spoke English super well. And like I wasn't going to claim that, I think I thought Rev was German too, maybe.
Oh, that's
actually.
Portuguese is one of those accents where I wouldn't be able to place it anyway. I'm like, what moon language is this? And they're like, oh, it's Portuguese. And I'm like,
yeah, I feel like I don't know. I kind of feel like I went through the same thing recently. And Portuguese can sound like the cadence of Portuguese sounds very Russian to me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
No. And we're Spanish speakers, so it's not like we're unfamiliar.
You're a Spanish speaker. I'm a Spanish butcherer.
So you had a funny story when we did kind of like an initial conversation about this, and you were talking about how you all sort of started talking outside the campaign.
Yeah. So like a lot of friends I have now that are like really good friends started off as like more just gaming buddies. The Germans were no exception to that, but I've had like real life people who would just like, the game would end and they wouldn't go home and they would just like hang out and chat with me for longer, and then I'd be like, it's fucking midnight, man. I guess we're friends now. But the sort of like crossing of that threshold with the Germans came when Kevin got drunk, and we didn't know him as Kevin yet. We just had like online handles, and we like mostly just referred to him as his character name, Vladimir.
That's why you thought he was Russian.
That would do it.
Yeah, that did not help for sure. So Vladimir goes out. He goes out drinking, and it turns out he's like an exceptionally happy drunk. He's a very cheerful Satanist as well. which he will talk to you about at length.
And this is IRL. This is not his character.
Correct. Yes.
Yes. Good to be clear
This is
on
not
that.
performative.
Yeah. No, you could have a diabolist. Is that what you would call a devil worshipping person? I don't know.
I'm gonna go with sure.
Why not?
But he messaged us, and you got to keep in mind, like, time differences, zone differences are here, thing here, right? So it's like 7 p.m. my time, and it's got to be like 1 a.m. his time or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
But he just starts messaging us all on Discord, and he says, "I love you guys. You guys are such great guys." And I'll just say that about anyone. It's hard for me to open up to folks and like to really feel comfortable even in a role-playing game, but you guys are great. And I was just like, "Aw, Vladimir." And
That is adorable.
like,
So cute.
please do not call me Vladimir. It is weird. Call me Kevin. And I was like, "Oh, Kevin." Very cute.
That is adorable. So now you all are like talking just like regularly? Are you just like even outside the game? Are you just having like conversations on
Yeah,
Discord or just like
I would say that like most of our conversations do still happen like over Discord text.
okay.
The time zone difference things makes it tricky because like their their evening is usually my work day. But like Kevin does have a tendency of every now and then getting drunk and looking for somebody to FaceTime with, and I've been that guy a couple times.
Oh.
Yeah, we've like found an excuse at one point for everyone to turn on their cameras except for Rev, who again probably actually a robot.
Or someone's cat.
Or someone's cat. Something that gained sentience which should not be sentient. Yeah, and we had like the initial group of people also had like a Scotsman for a hot second, but he left the group because he didn't like how longbows worked.
That may be the most Scottish response.
I was gonna say,
like,
being a Scot, he might actually have intimate experience with that. So
that's hilarious.
no, that's all wrong, and I'm not gonna even bother trying to do a Scottish accent.
He was also, I think, had like IRL experience with horses. I remember him having like a lot of very specific opinions on how we were caring for our horses on our journey and making sure that we named all our horses. Mine is Sergeant Clop Clop.
The best name for a horse I think I've ever heard.
Thank you. He was drummed out of the military. He had a forbidden love.
That'll do it. With a donkey?
Yes. No.
That was just my
immediate
assumption.
He was
an ass man.
That is good.
I didn't prep this question, but I just off the cuff, I am curious your thoughts around like, would you ever entertain going to visit these people in their home countries at some point?
I totally would. I'm a little worried that the giant sentient cat that is Rev might eat me. And like, I think it'd be one of those things where, I mean, like I'm married, so you don't take a trip to Europe without consulting your wife generally.
Minimally.
Right?
I mean, I would as a wife, I would recommend very highly that you minimally consult.
I'm gonna have to cancel a trip.
Yeah, so that's like what do we come down to? Like I would need to, like also have a trip to Europe in mind, but
yeah,
go back to Europe someday.
Oh, so you've been before then?
Oh yeah. I did a semester abroad in Swansea, which is in Wales.
Okay.
And over there in the UK, they do like really extended spring breaks. They give you like a month and a half off. But so like I took that as a an opportunity to go and do the Euro trip backpacking thing. And
yes,
I was sort of like hopping between like two different groups of friends, one of whom was like pretty straight laced and was doing like your typical historical tours, and then the other one which was like not so much and was going for more of like the punk underground scene. And they were like the ones that we would get like 4 bottles of wine from a shop in Paris, and they would range in price from like 20 euros to 2 euros. And we would start with the most expensive one. And then by the time we got to the least expensive one, we couldn't tell anymore. Yeah.
That's the way to go.
It is.
Right.
Which is preferable to when you get really drunk and realize, oh, I'm rich.
Why? Because you take a bunch of money out of the ATM?
Because you're drunk and you think you're, there's
yeah. Have y'all ever done like blackout drunk online shopping for yourself?
Oh, absolutely.
Wait, you have? Honestly, given how full this apartment is,
I'm
not even a little bit surprised.
I'm not frequently. I've done it. I think I've had something show up and I've been like, are we sure? Like,
is that how we ended up with the ottoman?
No, the cat harness I got recently might have been slightly. I bought a cat harness and a milk frother simultaneously. People were very curious.
Like a cat harness so you could walk your cat on a leash kind of thing?
That is the theory.
Have you done it?
No. Okay. She will drag.
She 404s when
she absolutely goes into cat not found mode when we put the harness on her.
It's not her favorite.
No.
Not her favorite.
No.
Anything to
it's
wear.
Not particularly flattering color, so I think that has something to do with it.
Must be.
Yeah. So I think the purple might do better.
She's more an autumn.
She is definitely an autumn cat.
I like seeing a cat on a leash, but I've never been brave enough to take mine out there. Like I live in West Philly, and there's like a lot of broken glass and cars, and also dogs off of leashes is a thing.
Yeah, we're anticipating taking her to the Wissahickon and doing some trailblazing with the cat. You've been?
Yeah.
So for any of our listeners or viewers who are unfamiliar, Philadelphia is a remarkably green city. There is just tons of hiking and parks, and the previous mayoral administration had an initiative of no one living further than a 10-minute walk from a park. And I feel like oh my God, this cat is just giving me all the life right now. Keep the nuzzles. Bunt away, buddy. Do it. Oh, so cute.
Don't show your butt.
There's the butt. There it is.
Oh yeah.
Let's get the little last one. He's like, don't hide.
Now he's vying for attention though, and he like wants to play. So
well, he's mad because you body shamed him.
Yeah, that's what it is.
All bodies are beautiful, kitty. It's fine.
Yes.
We love you.
We should. I can talk about my cat all day, but I'm realizing like there will be an audio only audience here too.
You know what? That's their problem. If they chose not to watch this, I don't feel bad for them.
Yeah. Go to YouTube.
You should have gone to YouTube. You should have subscribed. That's your problem.
These kitties and neat backgrounds.
That is exactly. If you want to see the cat, you got to subscribe on YouTube. Period. End of discussion. But yes, so the hiking around Philadelphia is just phenomenal. And the Wissahickon is one of our favorite places to do it, just because there's a lot of like back trails, a bit like off the beaten path, which is phenomenal. And
the hills are alive with the sound of Philly.
There is. And my favorite thing is people bring their horses down the trail, which is really cool. And so we actually got to talk to a horse rider and meet the horse one time, and it was just spectacular. So anyway, that's actually an upcoming video that we have, which is going to be all about that fun stuff. But anyway, so yes, so I highly recommend take the cat to Wissahickon and see how he does out there.
Yeah, I'd like to give that a shot. I think the one thing that would be tricky to figure out is like we don't have a car right now. We like when we both started working from home in the pandemic, and we like weren't really going an awful lot of places at that particular point. It was like we have very expensive car insurance for a car that's battery keeps dying.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, we went the polar opposite route. We actually wound up buying a car during the pandemic, so we couldn't stand being cooped up in the apartment anymore. But it's worked out well for us. But that's only because we, got it new and did the thing. And we've had some nice trips. But yes, taking a cat on the bus, not maybe recommended. But there is the Schuylkill Trail, and eventually there will be MLK will reopen after they finish construction, and people will be able to do their thing out there. I like that they shut that down April to November and in the weekends. And okay, so I did have a question here. So assuming that you have people who are in it for the long haul, who maybe have personalities that you clash with, or right, like you've talked a little bit about bonding with people, but like have you ever had the struggle of like trying to you said the Scottish guy who came in and was just like, you're not shooting right, and your horses are weirdly named. I can't do this anymore, right?
Yes.
So, are there any more claymores in this?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Like,
yes. So like the chemistry at the table or virtual table is the most important thing about everybody having a good time. D&D is a highly social hobby for a group of people that stereotypically aren't always the best socialized. And occasionally, like, that can be borne out at some of the groups I've played with. When I first moved to Philadelphia and I started looking for a local game, I was using meetup.com. I basically went to a bunch of pickup games with random strangers and poached the people who I thought were cool and I would get along with, and brought them in for my own game I started running, and like those people brought in people, and like a big segment of my social circle has branched out of that, even the ones I'm not playing D&D with anymore. But there were also folks that like I would not want to invite to my table. There was one in particular who had this really gross tendency of, so I was playing like a gay character and he had a lot of gay jokes where that was the only punchline was that I was gay. It was very lazy. He also would use like unfortunate labels for women anytime there was like a female NPC that would show up in the thing, and it was like, I don't know what this dude's problem is exactly until I did, because his mom came to a game.
Okay.
And I guess he lived with his mom. That was the vibe I got. But he also like deeply resented her and like didn't want her there, but she was there anyway. And it was like, wow, your whole like thing against women is really just rooted in your relationship with your mother, huh?
Yeah. Okay.
Yikes.
Which I feel like is probably accurate for a lot of people.
Yeah. The happy ending of that particular story, though, is his mom actually played with us, and she played another male character who spent most of the game like actively flirting with my character. And I like, look, I know, I fucked your mother thing is like rooted in some gross sexism stuff. But for like that particular guy or that dude, in terms of just like karmic justice, his mom wanting to fuck me is like the ultimate.
That's amazing.
The ultimate payback for his nastiness.
Did you happen to incorporate that even more into the game? Like, went back to a tavern or an inn and just was like, hey.
If either of us had stuck around, I will say, because I left that game shortly after.
Sounds like the wise man there.
Yeah. But I think if both of us had stuck around, I feel like that is where it would have gone. Yes.
You're like, you didn't even have to roll for charisma.
No, just oh, it was pretty glorious.
That's one hell of a silver lining right there. I'm here for it, actually. Weirdly enough, I'm just like, okay, well, that punchline that came right out of left field. And right?
So good. It was so good.
That's amazing.
That is the ultimate satisfaction,
So
I have
great.
to say. Like, literal motherfucker. That is.
Yeah. Oh, it was just you can't make it up. It's just beautiful.
No. No. This is. I mean, to your point about bonding, I mean, that was like
taking bonding to a whole new level.
Oh, stop. Oh my God. I can't take you anywhere.
Nope.
Breathe. There's so many moments that you get coming out of these campaigns, like in person or virtual, right? Like when you're talking to people, like you create so many inside jokes. You create so many like moments of shared bliss and defeat and sadness and joy and like all this stuff that's just like you cannot get that anywhere else. I mean, the word rage makes me laugh uncontrollably as a result of the campaign that we were doing, just because we had like the world's craziest barbarian, and it's just like every chance we got, we would just sit at the table like very quietly, like rage, right? And just like egging them on, right? Like every time, because you don't get that anywhere else. But now anytime someone says the word rage, I bust out laughing, and they're just like, what is wrong with you?
That is excellent.
It's so fun though. Like that's how you connect. That's how you do the thing. I don't know. I'm very curious if you have I mean, because you mentioned like all these different platforms come in all different shapes and sizes, and you get what you pay for, right? Like Roll20 is obviously one of the more popular ones. What are like would you recommend paid versions of these things, and like why or why not? Do you think?
I would recommend paid versions of one in particular,
Mm,
which is called Foundry VTT.
okay.
It's excellent. I mean, like I've mostly used it for Pathfinder, right? So that's where my recommendations lie. But like the business model should also carry across for other games and other systems.
Mm,
Um, like I'm actually not sure if they support 5e as well, just because like Dungeons and Dragons, as I mentioned earlier, is like more litigious and has more of like a proprietary thing on their rule set.
mm,
Um, that like you have it's hard to have like third party content for it or third party support. They have like their own official virtual tabletop that they
mm.
want you to use.
Mm.
But Foundry is just as a Pathfinder player absolutely fantastic. It's kind of open sourced.
Okay.
I paid $50 for the program, and I got this program that would I could install all these rule sets on, and would like keep it being updated with new rules for free as opposed to having to buy every individual book as it came out. It's got a lot of cool abilities that are like functionalities built in with like setting playlists, and you can have like your tokens on this map, right? And the map can be a picture that you've drawn or out of the book or you found on the internet. And you can have like dynamic lighting that maps to the specific character so that like you can only see what your character can see because there are walls and sight lines programmed in. And like you can
Mm,
see what's in a room if you go over and click the door to open the door.
okay.
Um,
Which I will admit I think is helpful.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the imagination kind of prevents you from being able to like acknowledge like I can't actually see that or I can't actually
mhm,
move that far or I can't write, and then you start getting a little wild with your abilities. Like
yeah, that's what we call metagaming.
yes.
Hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, when you're using information that you as a player have, but your character does not to
There we
make
go.
decisions.
Okay.
It's like approaching a video game level
Yeah.
of functionality, and I think eventually, if not Foundry, then something is going to get there. Like there's just going to not be much of a distinction between a virtual tabletop and Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, which frankly, I mean, I would play the absolute hell out of that. Like that just sounds really, really fun. And you can, and if I'm understanding correctly, you can bring in people existing. Like you don't have to play with an online community. You can bring in friends that you already have that maybe, and thinking about it from like a virtual perspective or like a travel perspective, right? Like you have friends all over the country, all over the world, anywhere that you've met, like suddenly you have this thing that you can do together that's outside of just okay, well let's try to set up a call every so often just to like meet up and connect and see how things are going. Now you actually have like a reason to keep that conversation going and to make it like really proper entertaining.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean like at this point, I'm doing admittedly a lot of play with the Germans. Uh, but I still have games going with various other groups of friends, some of whom are, um, you know, back home in Maryland, some of whom have moved to other parts of the country, some
Mm,
of whom like are local but are immunocompromised or just aren't comfortable
Mhm.
going inside with other people without masks or
mhm.
like whatever the thing is. It's a really nice way to be able to still keep connected to those folks.
That's awesome.
Very
That
cool.
is really, really great. This conversation has been so fun. Like, I genuinely don't want to end this, but I feel like that is a perfect place to like leave it. I feel like we kind of answered that question. Like, is there an overlap between online tabletop RPGs and travel? I personally feel like we answered that
I
question.
think so.
But I'm partial. I don't know.
I think we did.
I think so. I think we're good. I think the cats definitely helped us drive the point home
For
because
sure.
without cats in the conversation, it's really hard to understand where the connection is. You
Mhm,
know,
Well,
it's
mhm.
because of Rev, the giant sentient cat
Exactly.
in Portugal.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
That was the through line.
Well, I'm going to play us in a
Can I
little
start
bit
playing
here.
music?
Yeah.
You're doing a little outro music there.
Little dancey,
All right.
dancey, funky number. This again is Mama Coco. This is by our producer Blake Symphony. Please check him out at Blake Symphony on Instagram, SoundCloud. He's got new music out. He is amazing. Also check out our buddy Sincere Da Vinci, who also has new music out. Oh, and check out Blake's new merch. He's got really cool shorts with tigers on them and fun, awesome bomber jackets and just amazing.
Does he have a three wolf moon shirt?
Sadly, not yet. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Maybe we'll get him to do a t-shirt with Morgan on it and riding a cat or being ridden by a cat.
Morgans and bees.
I do joke that Tom Hanks is my familiar. He does a very good arm perch.
Got the right coloration for it, so.
Spectacular. Morgan, you're amazing. This was really fun.
Yeah.
Y'all are amazing.
Oh,
Thanks for having me.
Hey.
Oh,
Thank you.
glad to have you on.
Yay. Well, this will be good. I'm looking forward to hearing your episode. Check them out again on How Did This Get Made? The Philly episode filmed at the Miller Theater. And
they're calling it Morgan and Dragons, right?
Morgan and Dragons.
Well, I'm sure the episode title will be named after the movie itself, which was Dungeons and Dragons.
Lost
the T-shirt.
The T-shirt. The T-shirt.
Yeah.
See, now, if you weren't there, now you were, and you can get the T-shirt just because of us. Morgan Vierling, thank you so much for joining us. If you'll stick around for a second, I'm just going to move you off the stage here, and we will connect with you afterwards. Everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. This has been the Trip B Podcast. Hope you have an awesome day, and look forward to having an adventure with you soon.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and visit us over at patreon.com/trippy. And got any coin lying around?
We have new perks coming.
Oh, they're on their way. They're on their way. Very excited.
They might be here already. We don't know when we're releasing this episode.
Touche.
All right, everyone. Have an adventure.
Night, y'all.